welcome to Americans Learn. My name is Lauren, and today I am looking at a channel called It's History. This channel was actually suggested on the Chicago Reacts channel, so I will also be reacting to a different video there. But I also wanted to throw in one over here as well, because I think this is interesting, and hey, it's about Chicago. Let's learn about where I live, maybe. So this one is called Why Chicago's Hidden Street Has 3 Levels, The History of Wacker Drive. Now, Wacker Drive is the worst. You definitely have seen Wacker Drive, Lower Wacker, if you watched Batman: The Dark Knight, the part where he is chasing the Joker and the Joker's got the bazooka and they're going through that underground tunneling area. That's Lower Wacker. Wacker, it sucks so bad. There's some interesting things on Lower Wacker, but your GPS will not know where you are. You just disappear for a while. And if you're trying to get to some place that's on Lower Wacker, if you're on Upper Wacker, your GPS thinks you're there because you're above it. It's so, oh my God, it's terrifying. Trying to drive anywhere on Lower Wacker, no thank you. Trying to walk anywhere on Lower Wacker is hard. So it's even if you're on Upper Wacker, you kind of have to know where you're going, because you're the maps doesn't know what's happening at all. So anyway, that's my gripe with Wacker Drive. I avoid it when I can. So I'm gonna find out why they did it that way. I bet it has something to do with one of the the fire, or one of the times that things have sunk to the ground, or because there's a lot of Chicago that has been kind of rebuilt on an upper level. It used to be there's a bunch of places that are kind of underground essentially that are still open. You can still go and check them out, but they weren't they weren't always on a lower level, and things have been rebuilt above them. So I'm assuming it has something to do with that, but I guess we'll find out.
Is a hidden network. Beneath Chicago is a hidden network of roadways and tunnels that some call the city's forest of pillars. This is Lower Wacker Drive. Unknown to most tourists and suburbanites, this turn-of-the-century marvel provides locals with a special shortcut across the most congested parts of the city, yet the mystery gets deeper, as below Lower Wacker Drive is a third hidden level that is much harder to access and almost entirely forgotten.
See, I think I do have a friend who found herself on this part of it at one point. She told me a story recently about how she got stuck on Lower Wacker, there was a weird inside. I think she might have accidentally found herself under Lower Wacker Drive.
Today we discover the history of Wacker Drive and its forgotten third level.
Yeah.
I'm your host,
okay,
Ryan
let's
Socash,
go.
and you're watching.
Hi, Ryan
It's
Socash.
Before we get started today,
Just scared. I wasn't expecting to see a face. I don't know why.
exciting announcement. Thanks to our sponsor, Established Titles.
Oh, nope.
Officially became.
We're not doing that. This was a scam. So we're not doing that.
For context, let's have a look at this historical roadmap from 1902, featuring the city of Chicago with some rather pronounced differences from the city we know today. Rail lines play a far more central role, particularly on the north side of the river, terminating at the Water, later becoming Navy Pier. As you'll also see on the map, these rail lines connected to various dock buildings along the river and lakefront, from where the cargo was loaded and sent to the rest of the city and onto the country.
Okay.
This relationship between boat and train shaped the nature of Chicago's early infrastructure. Still, with the rise of the automobile and the implementation of Chicago's Great Plan by Daniel Burnham, the city was about to receive a transformation that would be the greatest thing since the Chicago fire.
I feel like Daniel Burnham played a huge part in designing the 1893 World Fair. The one with H.H. Holmes, the White City, that one. I feel like Burnham played a huge part in designing that too.
The 1909 Plan of Chicago was a publication that recommended many projects to transform the city.
I might be so off on that.
It was published by prominent businessmen who recognized the needs of a growing city, considering that in 1900 over 1 million people lived in the town, when just 50 years earlier the population was in the thousands.
Dang!
It began to feel a bit crowded and chaotic. Additionally, the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition, which we covered in an earlier video, showcased to the world just how much economic potential Chicago had, and hence when it came to the reality of implementing the Great Plan of Chicago, business tycoons from wide and far would come to take their piece of the profits. The plan included widening streets, creating or improving parks, upgrading the railroad, and bringing massive changes to the harbor.
I think they did a pretty good job with that. Chicago's got some really, really good parks, like all over the place. Like there's so many green spaces here. It's crazy. I love it. Millennium Park is huge. That's the one everyone knows, but there's like lots of them all over the place. And then along the river, lots of like just green areas there. But even like further inland, there's some really, really cool, just big open parks. There's Oz Park. Oz Park is cool. It's themed a little bit. Like, I don't know, Winnemac Park always has great fireworks on the 4th of July. Don't tell the city. Like, it's good. Like, there's so many cool, huge green spaces here. I love that he put the parks in because I miss nature. Where I grew up, I was like right around I could walk into the woods and I could be disappeared for days, you know? And I miss that.
The book proposed some ultra-modern, even futuristic ideas, which at the time walked the line of sounding utopian. All the same, some of these ideas were enacted, including the mysterious tunnels under Wacker Drive. Still, the other accomplishments made the city what it is today, especially concerning the lakefront. So let's have a look.
Yay!
The lake was always at the heart of Chicago. In fact, when explorer Robert de La Salle first arrived in 1687 on the land that would later become Chicago, he recalled in his memoir, quote, "We arrived at a said place called Chicago, spelled Chicagu, which, according to what we were able to learn of it, has taken this name because of the quality of garlic that grows in the forests in this region. That is to say, the area's wetlands were so vast that they presented a defining odor. Fast forward to the Plan of Chicago in 1909, improvements to the lakefront were essential goals of the authors, who exclaimed, quote, 'The lakefront by right belongs to the people. Not a foot of the shores should be appropriated to the exclusion of the people.' And so the plan recommended expanding the parks along the shoreline with landfill. And now, out of 29 miles of city lakefront, only 4 aren't parks.
That's pretty good, isn't it? That's pretty good. There's a lot of really cool places along the lakefront of Chicago.
This was a fantastic gesture by the city, which could have enjoyed immense tax revenues had those 29 miles been industrialized. Outer parks were also a point of interest, with projects like the Cook County Forest Preserve seeing some of its first mentions in writing around this time. That being said, changes to the transit infrastructure would be what brought about the most drastic innovations. City rail lines would be pooled for efficiency in freight handling, and an overall consolidation of Chicago's 6 intercity railroad passenger terminals would be placed west of the Loop and south of Roosevelt Road. Union Station would be finished by 1925, and with these improvements, the Loop's business district began to sprawl southward. Consolidating the rail lines would significantly impact the river's north bank, but it would be the systematic arrangement of streets that resulted in the underground forests of pillars. You see, the city urgently needed more comprehensive ways to relieve congestion. Chicago's iconic diagonal street designs were one solution, of which Ogden Avenue is a pretty good example. Michigan Avenue, or now the Magnificent Mile, as a result of this project, was widened and extended across the river, replacing Pine Street up to Ohio. And on the south bank of the river, a triple-decker road would be created with Upper Wacker Drive serving more scenic and representative purposes, Lower Wacker Drive offering a pragmatic way to avoid congestion, and Lower Wacker Drive, or Sub-Wacker Drive, for utilities. This concept seemed impossible, but as you may have noticed in my other Chicago history videos, the city has a way of beating the odds.
I mean, like, dude, we reversed the river. Like, you know, it's like, yeah. It's like Chicago, if you don't know, is a very weird city. It was, if you know the clip from Monty Python of this about the castle the Holy Grail clip where the dad is like, the castle sank into the swamp. Then we built a second castle, and that one sank into the swamp. Then we built a third one. The third one burned down, fell over, and then sank into the swamp. But the fourth one stayed up. And that is basically what happened to Chicago. And then we reversed the river.
The original triple-decker road was completed in 1926 and replaced South Water and River Streets. The route extended to Michigan Avenue, where one could cross the river on a double-decker bridge. Construction costs came to $8 million, and the name was ultimately chosen to honor Charles Henry Wacker, a German-American businessman. He served as chairman of the General Committee of the Commercial Club of Chicago and was later appointed chairman of the Chicago Plan Commission by the mayor. Wacker was a powerful force in realizing the grand plan of Chicago, and his involvement went deep, as he was also the director of the 1893 Columbian Exposition. Charles Henry Wacker passed away on October the 31st, 1929 in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, and now rests at the Graceland Cemetery of Chicago. Between 1948 and 1954.
That's actually not too far away from, I pass the Graceland Cemetery a lot.
Additional extensions were added south of Congress Parkway and Harrison, replacing Market Street. Between 1963 and 1975, wings were added, connecting Lakeshore Drive to the new lower level. This connection made a lot of sense, but was complicated, as back then Lakeshore Drive had an S-curve at the river on a viaduct over the Illinois Central Railroad yard, meaning that the lower levels were dead-ended. However, in 1986, new alignments were made to improve the connection, and although the road was now a fully connected utility of the city, time had already begun to take its toll. By the early 2000s, Wacker Drive was crumbling along some portions of the original upper deck.
That tracks.
The entire roadway failed to meet modern road widths and clearance standards. The visual aspects of the street that made it so appealing in films like The Blues Brothers or The Dark Knight also made it highly impractical. Hence, the city contracted experts to develop a particular cast-in-place system to bring the road up to code. After 20 months
I did not realize that happened. So I keep forgetting that Dark Knight happened in like 2008. That was like a long time ago. Holy crap. Either way, Lower Wacker Drive sucks still. I'm like, he's not going to turn me around on this. Wacker Drive is a hellscape. Unless you know what you're doing on Wacker Drive, which I never figured out because I don't spend that much time downtown anymore. And even when I did, I avoided Wacker Drive, and I don't drive myself. So like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing with Wacker Drive, therefore it remains terrifying. If you can learn Wacker Drive, it opens up so many possibilities.
$200 million, the new roadway was completed and is expected to last up to 100 years. Riverfront walkways were also added for pedestrians, yet the historic limestone elements were maintained, and the city even reproduced the street's original 1926 lighting concept, a lovely touch.
That is, I mean, I do like that about Chicago. Like, that is one thing I really like about this city, the way that we approach architecture. And if you like in the neighborhoods of Chicago, it's hard to pass, especially up north. It's so hard to look at two different buildings right next to each other and think that they might have been possibly designed by the same person. Like, everything is so different. It just adds a huge amount of charm to like every single neighborhood, because they're all so different, and like every other house is so different from the ones around it. And you'd think it would lack cohesion and it would be disorienting, but it's not. It's just charming. And then like when they do a lot of construction projects, a lot of the time they do work really hard at keeping the aesthetic and of like the original buildings, and like they like to keep the history preserved here as much as they can, it seems, and I appreciate that about this place.
Upgrades continued through the decades to follow, and in 2014 the American Council of Engineering Companies awarded the builders of Wacker Drive their prestigious Grand Conceptor Award, because in 2014 every day, up to 135,000 vehicles and 150,000 pedestrians moved through the roadway, which at the time was an active construction zone. So with that in mind,
let's
have a look at what Upper Wacker, Lower Wacker, and Lower Wacker consists of in the modern day.
All right.
South Wacker Drive starts
Nightmares.
at a somewhat gritty intersection of Harrison
Horror and nightmares.
and Wacker. From here, drivers can enter the upper roadway or the first section of the lower deck. Should you follow the upper deck, you'd find yourself on the edge of the loop along the river traveling north. To your right would be the Sears Tower, which was the tallest building in the world for many years. Head just a bit down the road, and to your left would be the Lyric Opera of Chicago, a masterpiece of a building. And then across the river is the Aggieville Transportation Center, which is a modern monstrosity that replaced the historic Wells
pretty
Street
cool,
Station
though.
and CNW Terminal. Anyhow, once you cross Lake Street, Upper Wacker Drive curves east, and it's here that pedestrians can enjoy the Chicago Riverwalk with unique views of Merchandise Mart. It's also from this level that you could imagine the 60 plus miles of forgotten tunnels that connected to that building and other historic ones in the area. From this vantage point, you can also see where the Chicago River branches away towards the Kedzie Street Bridge. This is where the Chicago flood occurred in 1992, when construction crews accidentally punctured the forgotten tunnels. It was also this bridge where the driver
Yeah!
of the band's tour bus
Knew it!
raw sewage directly into the river through the graded roadway.
And on the people on the boat. And also on the people on the boat.
Unfortunately, a jam-packed tourist boat was passing right underneath at the time.
they were.
Continuing east, you'll be able to admire Chicago's best bridges, and if you're lucky, a few may be open to accommodate boat traffic, which is an epic sight to behold. Upon reaching the junction where Wacker Drive connects to Michigan Avenue or Lakeshore Drive, you'll see this guy who decided to strike a pose for Google's camera. Anyhow, before the upper deck of the road terminates, the first lower level becomes exposed. The upper level is a fantastic way to travel if you'd like to take in the beauty of Chicago's architecture. But if you're just looking to go from A to B or a more Batman type vibe, the lower level will be your route. Let's start back at the beginning. You could enter the lower level from West Harrison, or if you're coming from the suburbs, exit 290 directly into the tunnel. This is an excellent way to experience the road because some people even considered Wacker Drive to be an inner city highway prototype. The lower level moves along so well that entering it in this fashion almost feels like a portal to Navy Pier. This level of the roadway has also been famous as a place of danger and filth, and it's certainly not a place that pedestrians would enjoy. The road has several entrances, with the one at
People find themselves there sometimes, though. I'm not traumatized.
considered a secret. Lower Wacker Drive is 2.2 miles long and is probably the only way to cross downtown in under 7 minutes, sometimes even during rush hour. Most drivers think they've discovered a secret but fail to realize that the top secret is actually right below their wheels. Lower Wacker Drive, or Sub Wacker Drive, is not well known to the public since access is limited. The roadway was built in 1975 to provide basement-level deliveries and garbage removal to many skyscrapers along the route.
But like I said, I think my friend actually found herself here because there were a lot of like no access. There was some dead ends. Like she found some weird places when she was down there at one point. So I think she might have discovered this by accident. She like made a wrong turn that was not supposed to be open, I think. And I think this is where she was.
In my opinion, this concept is a nod to Chicago's freight tunnels that were used for the same purposes many decades prior. Sub-Lower Wacker Drive was also used for parking and storage. Furthermore, this level was the location of the city's notorious impound yard, which is how most citizens came to learn of it. However, it was also noticed by other means. You see, nearby residents reported hearing very bizarre sounds at all hours of the night from Lower Wacker Drive, which they hypothesized came from street races. Elliot Carter put it best in his article when he stated, quote, "Deeper still beneath Lower Wacker Drive is a little-known third roadway, challenging to find and little visited by law enforcement. Lower Wacker Drive was built in 1975 to provide parking spaces for garbage trucks and storage for many unneeded trash cans and city property.
Cool.
There's
Get it off the streets.
Strange paradox down here. You're simultaneously in the heart of downtown and cut off from the metropolis above. This nearby remoteness makes Lower Wacker Drive popular amongst specific drivers who assemble on the weekends for high-octane drag races." Residents of nearby apartment buildings can hear the echoing screeches late into the night on Fridays and Saturdays. The Chicago Tribune estimated in 2015 that the racing has been going on for more than a decade, but
Dang.
added that nobody could say for sure. The races typically happen on Friday nights. Many participants came from Northwest Indiana. The article goes on stating,
I'm not shocked.
Other than drag racers, most Chicagoans only visit the lowest Wacker catacomb if their car's been towed by the city's difficult-to-access impound lot, located on Lower Drive. Obviously, with one road having 3 levels, confusion is inevitable. Chicago had to install special beacons in lower levels so that visitors wouldn't panic when they found themselves underground in a dangerous-looking place with no GPS.
Nope.
Traditional maps might not help you either, as in 1 square mile, there's Lower East Wacker, Lower East Wacker, Upper East Wacker, Lower West Wacker, Upper West Wacker, Lower North Wacker, Upper North Wacker,
Yeah.
Lower South Wacker, and Upper South Wacker. Now,
As I said, it's a fucking nightmare.
if you think I'm exaggerating, I challenge you to attempt navigating these
No,
roadways
I
using
don't want
Google
to.
Earth.
I don't
And
want
you'll see
to.
that you can get lost that way as well. And with all that being
That's why I said I hate lower whackers. And it's whacker in general. It's upper and lower. It's bad. It's great if you know where you're at and you know what you're doing. If you don't, if you're like only going downtown every couple of months, then it's not. It's so scary. But I think the OG Billy to Goat Tavern is down there, and like that's worth it. But finding it can be a pain.
said, perhaps the confusion is part of the beauty. The navigational challenge can keep people out, and perhaps that's a good thing, leaving at least one fixture of the city to serve the people who live there. So as I hope you now see, Chicago's triple-decker road is a truly unique example of ingenuity against the odds, providing convenience for residents, a utility for skyscrapers, and a little obscurity and adventure for visitors. Like a necessary piece of a complicated puzzle, Chicago would be incomplete without Upper Wacker Drive, Lower Wacker Drive, and Lower Wacker Drive. Chicago's not alone in this either. Many cities have mysterious underground spaces which we love exploring here on It's History. So if that sounds good to you and you'd like to enjoy more, hit the subscribe button. And if you'd like to see an underground world that makes Wacker Drive look minuscule by comparison, don't miss my video about the catacombs of Paris. And we'll leave it there for today. Feel free to DM me your episode ideas on Instagram. And until next time, this is Ryan Sokash, signing off.
Thanks, Ryan. That was really, really cool. I liked that a lot. I thought that was interesting. I did find that good. Okay. See, some of that I knew. Some of it I did not. I didn't realize that there was 3 levels. Honestly, that's something that didn't really occur to me, honestly. And I have a new appreciation for Wacker Drive, but like I said, I always knew it was a good road if you knew what you're doing with it. And so I don't. I've definitely been in cars with people who knew what they were doing with it and it was fine, but I've also accidentally found myself there a few times and it was bad. Didn't like it. And then I found myself there on purpose a few times and still was lost and like wandered around for like 40 minutes until I found what I was looking for. Because you do have to kind of just know, otherwise you're just gonna be lost and it's fine. Anyway, that was so much fun. I really, really hope you all liked that because I want to watch more of It's History. I will probably keep more of the Chicago videos over on Chicago Reacts because I think that could be kind of fun. It's a little bit different than what we usually react to over there. But it could be still fun to put more Chicago stuff there. But I thought I'd give it a shot here first. So thank you all so very much for watching. And let me know if you want to see more. And if you don't, well, I'm probably going to do it anyway. See you in the next one.